You're watching NOWi, the network of Wisconsin Impact. We talk with the people doing the work that keeps the community going. This is what is happening in your backyard. Use it, share it, and stay connected. So today on NOWi, I want to introduce a good friend of mine. I've known her for a few years. Her name is Dixie Weber. She's an educator, a certified peer specialist, and a certified parent peer specialist. She's technically retired, but we know in this day and age, being technically retired doesn't mean anything.
And I have grandkids, so there's that.
So she's a powerful and persistent voice in the community. She's learned throughout her life about mental illness and the impacts of individuals, family, and community, and how they all intertwine. Dixie?
Well, thank you very much for that nice introduction, Chuck. I'm so glad that you asked me to do this because I don't necessarily think of myself as maybe a powerful voice, but I'm very persistent and very passionate advocating for people with mental illnesses. Because there are so many people out there who do struggle. Sometimes they're not diagnosed, and oftentimes they are afraid to speak up because of the stigma. So if I can work on speaking up and speaking out, then I can help erase that stigma and advocate for them.
That's wonderful. And you know, sometimes people don't need that loud person yelling and screaming in the background. Sometimes they just need that consistency.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I want to start off with a first question. Tell me about your background and what led you to where you are right now.
Okay. It was a bunch of steps that I had to come down. That's why I'm not. But besides that, now I was teaching for like 20 years, junior high kids, and loved it. But, you know, people would say, you know, well, what is this going to be on the test? And it's like, no, I don't remember most of what I taught. So you don't have to know this for the rest of your life. What you really need is life skills like communication and relationships, how to get along with others, managing your physical and mental health. And kind of a short way of saying that is how to be happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's almost like what I tell my kids. What I tell my kids is you don't have to like everybody, but in the world you have to learn how to manage and navigate how to be functional.
Right, right.
And that happiness is not a guarantee. You're not guaranteed happiness, but you're guaranteed that ability to pursue what makes you happy.
Yes. But later in the interview, I will give you some information that it's about a book called The How of Happiness. So there actually are some things you can do to increase your happiness. So I'll share that in a bit.
Wonderful. So was there anything else during your special ed times?
When I decided to quit teaching, then I wanted to get a degree, an education specialist degree in counseling and psychological services. That was offered at UW-Stout. Within a short period of time, a couple of years, it was discontinued. And I had already taken maybe half the classes that I needed. I actually have 4,000 hours of supervised clinical experience working with female adolescent sex offenders, with families where there are children who have issues with the law or school, or maybe they or their parents are incarcerated. So I got to work with families actually right here in Wood County doing something called family preservation. And that was like my favorite job I've ever had because it allowed me to help people where they are, which that's what peer support is about. You're working with people that are like you in a way because you know some things that you've learned along the way, only because you yourself have experienced those.
And it's one of those where you meet them where they're at.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of like how it comes across with some people where if you're getting the help, you're going to them for guidance and support, you're going to them to tell you everything. And what I've seen with peer support is you're meeting them where they're at, you're working with and kind of working around those hurdles that are created from their experiences in their lives, or even ones that they've created themselves.
Absolutely. And that's what peer support is really all about. For me, getting involved in the mental health field besides it being about getting out of teaching, not that that was the thing, but it's personal for me. I have seasonal affective disorder. It's a major depressive disorder, actually, but it has that seasonal pattern. So in fall, winter, and early spring, I don't function as well. This is why we're doing the interview right now. And if we do a follow-up, it will not be in December, but maybe it could be to show that difference. But there are a lot of people who don't want to speak up or say, I have a mental illness. And for those of us who can speak up, and I do some writing as well, if we don't, who gives a voice to those who are afraid to speak up?
Exactly. So we went from that, from your special education to your peer specialist and your parents' specialties. Mm-hmm. Where are you now? What are you doing now? I know you said you're retired, but that doesn't...
Well, last night I took my grandson to the civic band concert, so there's that. But the thing is that there aren't any jobs out there that are specifically for peer specialists, especially not parent peer specialists. There's me and maybe one or two other parent peer specialists in Wood County. Now, there's a population of, I think, 40,000 people, maybe more, but there's got to be a lot of families that could benefit from having support in dealing with the day-to-day stressors that they have, and also in their families. We say that the mental health crisis is a children's mental health crisis, but if we could help the parents, that would really help them. So it's kind of like a continuum. So if people are having a problem, maybe social services gets involved or a crisis, let's, we can't go back upstream now, but maybe we can use that as a formula for before things happen. Let's do some preventative things before we have to call law enforcement, or before we're in the hospital, before there's a suicide attempt or anything like that.
Oh yeah, because it's a lot easier to take care of things when they're an anthill than when they're a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Because I see it, I know you see it all the time, where people end up ignoring or don't know how to manage. Right. And so something that if they caught it early, right. could have been easily taken care of with the proper tools and the proper mindset.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we talk about how so many people use substances as a coping mechanism, and it can cover up mental health issues. When I've done some peer support groups, I've asked people who, do you think that, they're either alcoholics or substance use is an issue for them. And I say, do you think that there's a mental health issue that you had before you started this? And I would say 99.5 people out of 100 will say yes. So, and what does substance abuse lead to? Well, crime, imprisonment. There's just a whole host of things.
There's so many social impacts that work with it.
Absolutely.
So now that we've seen this whole spectrum of when you started all the way to retirement, and how the retirement isn't really retirement, you're still living through example.
Yes, and trying to speak. So that's why I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today, Chuck, because there are a lot of things that people don't know about mental illness, a lot of misperceptions, a lot of things I learned along the way as I was working with other families.
And sometimes it's frustrating when we see people that either have a mental health issue or a mental health crisis, and the people around them, their loved ones, either go way too far with it or don't intervene enough. They're either neglectful because they're afraid of well, if I do anything, am I going to make it worse? And if I don't do anything, it'll just pass.
Neither of those are good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you were talking about your own personal mental health, your seasonal affective disorder.
Yes.
Uh, why do these topics speak to your heart? Besides the fact that you have your own personal seasonal disorders, is there anything else?
Yes. A longer personal story, and we don't have time for all of it, but
No.
but it's important because in 2005 I was working very hard to get my professional counseling license, and I even had these $4,000 of clinical experience, and yet I couldn't function very well. And in the fall, I think it was September of 2005, things just spiraled downward through no fault of my own, really, but if we don't have adequate access to mental health care and affordable, what happens is then you can't function. And if you can't function, you can't work. If you can't work, you're even less likely to get access to any form of health care because a lot of times it comes with a job. But let's say you aren't working. Now how do you get money to pay for your rent? You don't. So
That downward spiral.
exactly. So that's what's so important about recognizing it, that it does that. It does those three things as far as can't function, can't work, can't make money. But then it actually goes out through all the areas of your life. So if you're thinking about maybe your education, for me, some of those classes I ended up, failing, which is bizarre because I'm smart and stuff. But if you can't function in a consistent way, then what happens is that's derailed. And then your whole career that you have planned, like for me, was just, ended in that. But then fortunately, I think it went off into the direction of, instead of professional counseling, into peer support. But in the meantime, lots of issues with finances. If you can't pay your rent, then you may also have a legal issue because people will sue you for debts that you owe them, or you'll be evicted. Transportation, you might lose your vehicle if you can't make the payments on it. So it just, relationships, that's another thing, because you end up moving a lot and then you don't have that sense of community anymore because people that you made friends with when you lived in that apartment, well, now it's a year later and now you're somewhere else. Or if you did find a job, you're somewhere else. So all of those things really impact a person's life, not just then when they are happening, but they continue. For me, they continue to impact me. I did start to get better, to heal, to be more healthy, starting in 2006 and 7 and 8. And it's been a gradual process.
And it's still a learning. It's
Absolutely.
still a learning curve. Every day is a different day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I learn about myself and I learn about others. And I just want to say that when I had all of those issues, it really brought me down to like the underbelly of our mental health system. So these were people who were also struggling, living in apartments that had mold and carpets that were probably soaked with something that you wouldn't want to have them. But they were cheap because that's all they could afford. And you end up talking to people who have to go to a food pantry because they have nowhere else to go. There's just so much that I wouldn't have been aware of as a professional with a degree in a fancy office. I wouldn't have known this stuff. I couldn't have helped them.
And then the idea is that it's not like they see it and are like, oh, this is what they think their baseline life is going to be and should be. And I want to say it's sad, but my empathy towards it is, that's not how it should be. You should always strive for better. You should always strive. And that's that part of that pursuing of happiness. Yes. Not to just be accepting to what your situation is.
Right. The unfortunate thing is, though, when you're in the middle of dealing with mental health challenges, and for a lot of us that's every single day, you're not necessarily able to think that way. And what seems simple to the observer is just not.
That idea that you're so close to a forest you can't see those trees. You're in there. You're in the thick of it. You're right there. You can't see what's
you
going
hear
on.
them, but nobody else does. So who do you tell?
The other thing is that they're in survival mode. They're just
Absolutely.
dealing one day at a time.
Yeah.
They can't look past. It's not that they can't. It's easier to look into what do I need today
Absolutely.
instead of what can I do 3 weeks from now.
Right.
Because
Yeah. You can't plan ahead because you're not always sure how you're going to be able to function, or alternatively, you do know that you're not going to be able to function well. So then you kind of design your life around that and make sure that you get done what you want to. But I do also want to mention that, society oftentimes blames people for their mental illness. They don't see it as something that they could necessarily do something about. So what I think of is, it's not a catalog. It's not like, oh, I think I'd like that. Send that to me via Amazon. I'd like that on my porch. But it's more that what you're looking at is just not having the support because people don't understand it. It's not. It's a mental okay, let me say this. Medical illness is what mental illnesses are. They may have environmental triggers, but overall, it's not something that you're choosing to do. So oftentimes, if you're depressed and you're laying in bed, people will say, "Oh, get off your lazy self," and it's not that easy. It looks like, why can't they do it? But if you don't understand it, you can't. And that's the beauty of having the experiences I had, as difficult as they were, as awful as it was. Now I understand a lot better how people can get to those points where they feel they have no hope. And then I want to do something about it.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, is being able to pick yourself up and say, I'm going to do something about it. So we kind of touched base. We talked about what we wanted to talk about. We kind of touched base on the misunderstanding of the healthcare journey and how it's difficult. And it's not always the patient or the person going through it. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of the clinician or the person that's with you, not understanding your actual situation and how dire and I want to say how comfortable it is, because this is what you know.
Exactly.
And the mixture of that and your clinicians not understanding, the mixture of people just going, why can't you just... you're going to be depressed. Just move on.
Yeah.
To this is my life. To the person going, this is my life.
Right.
So what's your biggest lesson?
Biggest lesson is
that you've learned.
That I've learned personally is that it doesn't matter how much education you have or experience or abilities or perseverance or any of that, because I had all that and I still ended up like this close to homelessness, literally from one day to the next. It was like, I don't know where I'm going to be living. Luckily, there were friends who said, okay, I can help you. But society is supposed to have a community safety net. But what I found out in the things that I dealt with for that year, from the end of September to, then going on to 2005, then going on for the next few years, what I realized is that there's a lot of holes in those nets and you don't always have access to that. Quick example, when my rent was due, the landlord said, well, do you have it? And I said, well, I'll have it in a week because I have an appointment to get fuel assistance. And he said, well, do you have it now? And I said, no, I just told you. And he's like, well, I'm sorry, goodbye. So that's something that you would hope would be there for you, but it isn't necessarily there. I do want to tell you about some coping things, because what has helped me, maybe because I'm a teacher, I look at things that are like books and learning. So one of the books that has really helped me is called The 4 Agreements. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. And those 4 agreements are kind of contracts that you make with yourself that can change your entire life as far as how you see yourself and what you think you're capable of, and just how you should feel. Like, is this my lot in life or whatever, like you were saying before. So I'm just going to share those.
Yeah.
I want to read them because I want to make sure that I have the author's message correct.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So the first thing he says is be impeccable with your word. And what he means by that is speak with integrity. Say only what you mean and mean what you say. It's kind of like when people say, oh, that person is two-faced. It's like, well, maybe they're just trying to, shield you from something, or they want to be polite or whatever. But the author here says you really, have to be impeccable with that. And don't use your words to speak about others badly. Use it in a positive way about yourself and others. The second one is don't take anything personally. That's really hard. But he says nothing that other people do is because of you. It's like you have your own life, which is your movie. Your script is you're the star, and the other people, you've given them roles. They don't have to take those roles. They've written their own movie, and they have a role for you, and it probably doesn't match up. So that's why it's okay, and it has to be that disconnect. The other thing is don't make assumptions. You can think that someone is mad at you because they didn't say hello. It could be just that they didn't hear you or see you or something. So there's that. And always do your best. And that's going to vary throughout your life as far as, you're sick, are you employed, whatever. But if you always do your best, then you can go back and say, you know what, there's nothing else I could have done. So it would have been, this is the best that could be. And I'm happy with that. And I can live with that.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge...
Keep that open. I wanted to touch base. What was that first one again?
The first one was be impeccable with your word. So speak with integrity. Avoid using the words against yourself.
Right.
That's another good one.
So what was that first item again?
Okay, it's be impeccable with your word. It's not a normal word that we use today, but he's talking about speaking with integrity, so that you say what you mean and you mean what you say. You don't use your words against others. My mom used to say, if you can't say something nice, say nothing at all. And then for a few days in our house, very quiet because we couldn't think of anything to say.
It's interesting because in the relationship between my wife and I, we believe in unfiltered honesty.
Okay.
So, and
is she going to watch this?
Oh yeah, she will. We compare it to the idea of if you love someone, you're going to be willing to be honest with them, even if it's something that might be difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
But that's the only way to be with the people around you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then the second one was...
Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you.
My wife, in our family, we talk about the idea of we're the playable character. We're gamers. We're the playable character. Okay. We're the main reason why the story is going on. And there's some people who are main characters too. In their own story, and then there's what we call NPCs, non-playable characters.
Okay.
So people that are just there to keep the story going.
Okay.
We don't really mean this, but it's a way to remind ourselves that, this is my story, my chapter, and how do I want it written?
Exactly. Yeah. You write your own story.
Exactly.
And that goes along with why I wrote the book. Actually, it's a diary form. It's about 300 pages now. I could probably stop at some point, but diary, your life keeps going on. But what's interesting, I think about that is that because the year is so predictable, if you look at something from, say, July 3rd of last year, it'll be very similar to July 4th or 5th or whatever of maybe 10 years ago. And there's always, invariably, in February, there's a section that says, why is the Christmas tree still up? Because it always is. So we are getting close to running out of time. You were going to talk about like a mantra or stuff more about like a guiding
principle.
Yes. So my faith is important to me. So I really go back to the Bible verse, Romans 8:28, for we know that all things work together for good to them that love God and are called according to his purpose. And not just to be preachy here, but I think there's a very close intersection between psychology and biblical teaching. So I do have a website called A Voice Carries, and that's part of the message that I start with and what it was kind of founded on. And a lot of the writing is about that, not all of it. But Sonia Lyubomirsky is a pretty famous professor with psychiatry and psychology, and she wrote the book called The How of Happiness. So she actually gives you some things that you can do to become happy. There's little exercises, things you write down, but a lot of it is based on gratitude and thinking on that and focusing on that. Now, going back to what the Bible said about, what you should be doing, things that are working for good, it also says, whatever is true, and I'm going to read it to make sure I get it right. Mm-hmm. God would not be happy. Whatever is true and noble and right and pure and admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on those things. So that's the Bible saying, okay, whatever you think on increases, and those things are part of love and happiness and well-being. So it's a good correlation without seeming, like I'm, being preachy. It's just they do match up.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And that matches up with a lot of things in the world. Mm-hmm. that we see and we interact with. So we were talking one day about
you and I,
about the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, we were, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So what does the Wizard of Oz and the rainbow and all mean for you? Okay.
Well, let me start by saying when I was younger, this only came on like once a year, so you really looked forward to it. But
right at Thanksgiving.
Okay. But Dorothy is on this continual journey. She thinks that she needs something and someone beyond herself. And she realizes when she gets there that she had it within her all this while. And she says, if I ever go looking for my heart's desire, I won't look any further than my own backyard, because if it's not there, then I never really lost it to begin with. And I think a lot of us are searching for something beyond ourselves. We develop our self-esteem by seeing what other people think of us, and that's not what self-esteem is. Mm-hmm. So, I think Dorothy kind of sums it up, that being happy goes back to my initial comments about students, and they will want to live their lives in a way that is productive and happy, and they can get through things.
So, what's your final message to everybody? What would you want someone watching this to learn?
Okay. That there's hope and there's help, and that mental illness needs to be talked about. Sometimes we say a mental health issue, but we shouldn't be nervous or worried to say mental illness, because it's a medical illness. And I think the more we speak out about it, the more it becomes common, and then people will come forward to ask for help. When people take their lives, a lot of times they'll say, oh, that's not the answer. There's help out there. But not if you don't feel like you can access it for various reasons, like what people will think, or because it's not there. It's just, there's just a lack of that. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about this.
Oh my gosh, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Dixie.
You. Thanks, Jen.
Is there any way that if someone really touched upon what you're talking about, how they can get a hold of you?
Well, my website is avoicecarries.com, so you could look there, and that would...
Are you on Facebook too?
I am. Oh, yes, I am. Yeah.
As in everybody.
Yeah. Now I'm having withdrawals from that, but
okay.
Yeah.
All right, we got to cut it out short. Thank you for everybody. Have a wonderful day and enjoy.